Sakti Nenitachan Pamagadadara Nikateya Advaita Shini Pasatadara Yeah, sometimes the heater just really goes in overdrive, it feels like.
I remember a time when the heat didn't work very well.
Oh, yeah.
It was really bad years back.
That's what John used the word austere.
Horribly, literally cold.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, aren't you going to bless us with your knowledge? We need one of us full of knowledge.
The best part about that is he gets to hear that fun by too. Isn't it? The best part is he gets to hear that joke by Kunta too. That joke is powerful.
He's going to hear that for the rest of his life. Whenever we have new devotees that come here, I'll be like, oh, well, you got to go seek out the one that's full of knowledge.
You want to seek out the one full of knowledge.
He knows all. You want to do tonight?
That's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, permission.
Yeah, let's answer.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Rama, on my phone, I have to run upstairs and grab it. Okay. Yeah.
Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swaram Rupa Ramayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamanam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sakrijatam Sahaganam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadhutam Janasatam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishapanu Sute Devi Paramami Hari Priye Vanchakalparubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna. We left off on number 34, so we'll start 35 of chapter 6.
Chapter 6, text 35. Okay, we'll read the transliteration and translation together in this. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Samshayam Mahapapo Mano Denigraham Chalam Atyasena Tukonteya Vairakyena Chakriyate. Translation. The Blessed Lord said, O Madhyamanta, son of Kunti, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possible by constant practice and by detachment. Text 36. Asamyatat manhayogo dushprabha iti bhemati vashyat manhantu yadada shakyo bhaktum upayata. Translation. For one whose mind is unbridled, self-realization is difficult work. But he whose mind is controlled and strives by right means is assured of success.
That is my opinion.
Text 37. Arjuna Uvacha Ayati Sharayo Peto Yoga Chalita Manasa Aprabhya Yoga Samsiddhim Kam Gatim Krishna Gacchati. Translation. Arjuna said, what is the destination of the man of faith who does not persevere, who in the beginning takes to the process of self-realization, but who later desists due to worldly mindedness, and thus does not attain perfection and mysticism? Text 38. Kachchindo Bayar Viprashtash Chinhabram Vibanashyati Apartishto Mahabaho Gamurgo Brahmanapadi. Translation. Almighty Lord Krishna, does not such a man, being deviated from the path of transcendence, perish like a riven cloud with no position in any sphere? Text 39. Etam he samshayam Krishna chetum arhasya sheshata tvaranya samshayasyasya cheta nahi upapadyate. Translation. This is my doubt, O Krishna, and I ask you to dispel it completely. But for yourself, no one is to be found who can destroy this doubt. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Partha Naidehanamrita Mudra Vinashastasya Vidyate Nahi Kalyana Krikaschid Durgatim Tata Gachati. Translation: The Blessed Lord said, Son of Buddha, a transcendentalist engaged in auspicious activities does not meet destruction either in this world or in the spiritual world. One who is good, my friend, is never overcome by evil. Text 41. Prapya punya kritam lokan Ushitva shashvati samaha Shuchinam srimatam ye Yoga brasho vijayate. Translation: The unsuccessful yogi, after many years of enjoyment on the planets of the pious living entities, is born into a family of righteous people, or into a family of rich mystics. Text 42. Tava yoginam eva kule bhavati nadam etati dulabhataram etati dulabhataram loke janaya iprisham. Translation: Or he who takes his birth in a family of transcendentalists will surely great in wisdom. Verily, such a birth is rare in this world. Text 43. Tatratam buddhisam yogam labhate parvadehikam yatate chatato bhuya samsiddha gurunandana. Translation: On taking such a birth, he again revives the divine consciousness of his previous life, and he tries to make further progress in order to achieve complete success, O son of Guru. Text 44. Purvabhya senate naiva kriyate yavasho pisa jigyasur api yogasya shabda brahmati vardate. Translation: By virtue of the divine consciousness of his previous life, he automatically becomes attracted to the yogic principles even without seeking them. Such an inquisitive transcendentalist striving for yoga stands always above the ritualistic principles of the scriptures. Text 45. Ayatna yatamhanastu yogi samshuddhapil vishaha aneka janma samsiddhas yato yati param gatim. Translation: But when the yogi engages himself with sincere endeavor in making further progress, being washed of all contaminations, then ultimately, after many births of practice, he attains the supreme goal. We'll do one more. Tapasmipyo diko yogi jnanipyo vimato yiga Karmibhyashchadiko yogi tasmad yogi babarjuna. Translation: A yogi is greater than the ascetic, greater than the empiricist, and greater than the fruitive worker. Therefore, O Arjuna, in all circumstances, be a yogi. Back to text 35, chapter 6, entitled Sankhya Yoga.
You want to make the text a little bigger?
Yeah, I was just...
Oh, I see what you said. Yeah. Oh, okay. You can just do it like that. I got you, bro.
Okay, reading from text 35. Translation by His Divine Grace, Sri Prabhupada. The Blessed Lord said, O mighty armed son of Kunti, it is undoubted undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possible by constant practice and by detachment. Purport. The difficulty of controlling the obstinate mind, as expressed by Arjuna, is accepted by the personality of Godhead. But at the same time, he suggests that by practice and detachment, it is possible. What is that practice? In the present age, no one can observe strict rules and regulations, such as placing oneself in a sacred place, focusing the mind on the supersoul, restraining the senses and mind, observing celibacy, remaining alone, etc. But by the practice of Krishna consciousness, however, one engages in 9 types of devotional service to the Lord. The first and foremost of such devotional engagements is hearing about Krishna. This is a very powerful transcendental method for purging the mind of all misgivings. The more one hears about Krishna, the more one becomes enlightened and detached from everything that draws the mind away from Krishna. By detaching the mind from activities not devoted to the Lord, one can very easily learn vairagya. Vairagya means detachment from matter and engagement of the mind and spirit. Impersonal spiritual detachment is more difficult than attaching the mind to the activities of Krishna. This is practical because by hearing about Krishna, one becomes automatically attached to the Supreme Spirit. This attachment is called Pareshanu Buddhi, spiritual satisfaction. It is just like the feeling of satisfaction a hungry man has for every morsel of food he eats. Similarly, by discharging devotional service, one feels transcendental satisfaction as the mind becomes detached from material objectives. It is something like curing a disease by expert treatment and appropriate diet. Hearing of the transcendental activities of Lord Krishna is therefore expert treatment for the mad mind, and eating the foodstuff offered to Krishna is the appropriate diet for the suffering patient. This treatment is the process of Krishna consciousness. Om Shri Krishna Krishnati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Bhagavati Charani Niveshan Shashrunavadi Shatari Shatari. Hare Krishna. Beginning where we left off last night, here in this chapter entitled Sankhya Yoga, we'll read the translation again. The Blessed Lord said, O mighty armed son of Kunti, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possible by constant practice and by detachment. We have Lord Krishna responding to Arjuna's concern. Previously, he says, Arjuna, Chanchalam Himana Krishna Mati Balavajratam Tasyaham Nigraham Manye Vayor Eva Sadushkaram. He says that this process of controlling the mind, by which you've just taught me, seems to be more difficult than controlling the wind. Vayor Eva Sadushkaram, very difficult. Sadushkaram. Because how strong, how obstinate this mind is. In the second chapter we hear, in Indriyanam Icharadam, Yamano Udiyate. And in this verse, spoken by Lord Krishna, he says, even one of the senses on which the mind focuses on can carry away. Even one of the senses which the mind focuses on can carry away one's attention, just like a boat on the water is carried away by wind. How effortlessly does that boat drift away by the slightest breeze? Similarly, the mind, which is the reservoir of all senses, right? It's monitoring and taking in feedback from each and every of the 5 gross senses. And just one small stimulus is enough to sweep the mind away. So we heard last night from Magadharguru why in which this is being spoken about, this kind of artificial yoga practice, or mechanical practice, you could say. It's bona fide. It's not artificial. It is a bona fide way to realizing the Supreme within one's heart, Paramatma realization. However, within this age, it's near impossible, and a futile attempt at self-realization. Because, like Magadharguru said last night, Arjuna is the perfect man in pretty much every sense of the matter. He's greatly heroic, he's a champion on the battlefield, he has impeccable character, so much strength, he's adept in so many categories. He has even material qualifications on both sides, his spiritual qualification. Ultimately, that spiritual qualification is being Lord Krishna's best friend. And he himself is saying that this is too much. And therefore, this is a very important chapter in the Bhagavad Gita because it teaches us about our own capacity. What am I capable of? Here's Arjuna. Humbly acknowledging that this is a process beyond his grip, beyond his reach. So what do we expect for ourselves? But this chapter culminates in the 47th verse, which says, Yoginam abhisarvesham manvitim antarapana shrathapam vajate yomam manvitim antarapana. This is the conclusion of this chapter, in which actually that yoga process, which is ideal and most suited for us in this age, is delivered. It's delivered to Arjuna, and it's Shravam Bhajate Yogam, one who worships me with devotion. Right? Bhakti Yoga is delineated as the clear path to supreme partnership with Krishna, partnership with that Supreme Lord. This is what we're missing, the conditioned soul is lacking and searches for. In all of his relationships, he's looking for pleasure, he's looking for bliss, ananda. So it's ananda ayobhyasat. It's pleasure craving. We're addicted to something all the time. But is this addiction of a lower frequency or of a higher frequency? We need pleasure in all that we do. And this is spoken about in this purport. There's a word that's unfamiliar to me. It's said, this is spiritual satisfaction. Pareshanabhuti. Pareshanabhuti. This is spiritual satisfaction. It is just like the feeling of satisfaction a hungry man has for every morsel of food he eats. Therefore, and just to preface what I'm going into now with just to provide some context within this purport that Prabhupada gave us, is that he was talking about the 9 methods of devotional service. Right, so he's giving us the conclusion of this chapter before it comes to us from Krishna. And he's saying within this purport that actually, for us, it's devotional service that'll bring about the satisfaction that we're seeking. It's not this mechanical type of process that is possible. Through constant practice and determination, it is possible to mechanically control one's mind, but Prabhupada is telling us in his purport, it's far more easier by the 9 methods of devotional service, of which Shravana is foremost, comes first. Hearing. We have to take in this transcendental sound vibration through our ears first before we can actually impress upon our heart. But the spiritual satisfaction, there's a great description description of it here that Prabhupada gives us. He says, it is just like the feeling of satisfaction a hungry man has for every food he eats. This is the process of devotional service. He goes on to say, similarly, by discharge of devotional service, one feels transcendental satisfaction as the mind becomes detached from material objectives, or replacing the lower taste with the higher taste. Param Drishpan Vartate, Vishayavani Vartate, Viraharasya Dehana, Swapamavyasya Dhammasya, Param Drishpan Vartate. Or sorry, I got it wrong. Was there anyone? Or at any time, if you'd like to speak, please raise your hand and I'd be very happy to hear from you. Rasovarjan Rasopyasya Param Drishvana Vartate. Excuse me. This is spoken about in chapter 2 as well. This is talking about that the endeavoring to control instances is well and good, but if you're artificially removing yourself from the sense objects, but the desire is still there, then what good does that do? Because your consciousness is still fixed upon these objects and senses, right, which are material objectives. But to actually detach your mind from those sense objects is done through the establishment of a higher taste, which is not something that has a beginning and an end. Right? This is characteristic of lower kinds of enjoyment. But the wise man, he doesn't delight in that which has a beginning and an end. He's interested in something different, something spiritual, something eternal. Not in what comes in contact with his grossest senses. Yehi samsparsha boga, dukayo naya evite, adyantavanta kontayana, teshu ramate buddha. He understands that which is material has a beginning and an end, therefore he doesn't delight in them. Because if the soul is pleasure-seeking, which we've already discussed that it is, that which the man has temporarily defined as good will soon turn to bad when it leaves him. And anyway, what was good today might have been bad yesterday. This is the nature of the material world. It's like how many sweets can I actually eat before I have to reject them? Not that many, actually. I tried today, I had quite a bit. 4 or 5 bars, and then all of a sudden I'm feeling quite sick. And have another one. I don't even want to look at it, I'm on pulse. This is material enjoyment. This is the problem with honoring Prashadam with material consciousness. It's actually, that's not Prashadam. In one sense, you could say it's about a consciousness in which Prashadam is prepared, offered, distributed, and honored. And this is a subtlety which I'm trying to understand day by day. That it's not for my enjoyment. What I'm taking into my body is solely for fuel to keep me going on my service to Krishna. Not that I eat so much that I feel like I just need to sleep for so long afterwards, right? It actually becomes a hindrance to our devotional service. So therefore, we must accept what is favorable and reject what is not. These are two principles of Sharanagati, of surrendering to Krishna. What does that mean, surrendering very scientifically, Bhaktivinoda gives us 6 principles of surrender. And 2 of those are accepting what is favorable and rejecting what is not favorable. So this is something we're learning, that I'm serving Krishna in a way that he desires, right? In a way that's favorable for him, for his self, for his mission, for service to his devotees. I have to begin to understand and ask questions that bring me to the answer of what is really best for my service. And we do this through close submissive inquiry to our superiors. They can help lead us to clarity on that front. These processes of devotional service, though, these 9 processes of devotional service, are so practical, and they're just so innately true that they cannot really be argued by any other religion that's bona fide. They have to recognize these 9 processes of devotional service because they're universal to every single person who is striving in their relationship with the Lord. They themselves are partaking in these 9 forms of devotional service. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnam, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Vandanam, Archanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam. Hearing the glories of the Lord is so important for the conditioned soul because this is what, bit by bit, slowly but surely, lifts him up out of such material conceptions. So we should be very attracted to the philosophy, or to the culture that can bring about the highest conception of God realization. What contains the vast information of God, which I'm actually looking for, and this is the Vedas, the most vast library of texts pertaining to self-realization. No other religion even comes close, and this is simply because that which we're studying, Vedic culture, or also known as Krishna consciousness, it predates all other major religions that are recognized within the world as authorized approaches to God. Those are nice in themselves, they're great and all. There is something undoubtedly special about the knowledge that we're undertaking every day, day in and day out, is that it's the king of education. And it gives about direct perception of the self through realization. And it's joyfully performed. It's everlasting and it's joyfully performed. This knowledge was enunciated by God Himself. Dharma sakshat bhagavat pranitam. That Lord Krishna is actually the propounder of all religion, of true religion, which is love for Him, the re-establishment of love for Him. He says that by Him all the Vedas are to be known. Right? So He's the goal of all Vedic knowledge, attaining, understanding Him, His person, His personal qualities, His personal pastimes, His personal associates. This is what will really bring about our highest pleasure. And Prabhupada talks about vairagya, detachment from matter and engagement of the mind and spirit, right? Substituting that lower taste for the higher taste. And this is joyfully undergone when one takes to it with enthusiasm. That's the key ingredient, is enthusiasm. One actually begins to enjoy this process of disciplining our senses. The life of a sadhaka becomes joyful at some extent as we progress in the process of devotional service. And what makes it so incredible is that we understand the realization that's given to us as we proceed on the path of devotional service. We feel as if we've just had a full meal, in the sense that we're satisfied. How do you know when to stop eating? You feel satisfied, you feel nourished, you feel full. No one has to tell you. No one should have to tell you, I should say. Maybe that's there for some, but similarly, in spiritual life, when one's actually receiving taste, it becomes very apparent. Or even when they receive shadows of taste, the holy name is so strong that no way have I developed any taste for it, unfortunately. But Krishna's holy name, non-different than himself, Krishna is so strong that even the shadow of his name produces an effect within me that lets me know there's nothing else I'd rather be doing. There's nothing else that makes sense to do. So that should get our attention. That should help us to see that there's something here. And shouldn't we become a little bit curious to dig deeper into that? And to uncover the mysteries of this process of devotional service. These mysteries are revealed to us as we come back into understanding of our relationship with Krishna. And everything is fulfilled at that time. Those are some thoughts about that verse. Let's move on to text 36. For one whose mind is unbridled, self-realization is difficult work, but he whose mind is controlled and who strives by right means is assured of success. That is my opinion. The Supreme Personality of Godhead declares that one who does not accept the proper treatment to detach the mind from material engagement can hardly achieve success in self-realization. Trying to practice yoga while engaging the mind in material enjoyment is like trying to ignite a fire while pouring water on it. Similarly, yoga practice without mental control is a waste of time. Such a show of yoga practice may be materially lucrative, but it is useless as far as spiritual realization is concerned. Therefore, the mind must be controlled by engaging it constantly in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Unless one is engaged in Krishna consciousness, he cannot steadily control the mind. A Krishna conscious person easily achieves the result of yoga practice without separate endeavor. But a yoga practitioner cannot achieve success without becoming Krishna conscious. Pouring water on a fire and expecting that fire to spread. This is like a conditioned soul trying to enjoy materially side by side his advancements in spiritual life. It doesn't work like that, at least it delays the practice, the process. The fruit of devotional service is not tasted so quickly in that way. Bhaju Bhaju Bhai Chaitan Tsai Sukrit Mahashmanatwari Shaya Shariya Seda Se Majiya Muke Bolo, はいはい。 Give up all other endeavors and worship Lord Chaitanya Nityananda. This is the conclusion of what's being spoken about in this book. And Ishaya Chariya. Then unless one gives up in full material sense gratification, what real progress will they make? And ultimately, we need devotee association to do that. There's no other way to do that other than to befriend the devotees and through the encouragement that they give us, where we have all the determination that's required to press on with so many hardships, so many challenges and tests that oppose us. We need people in our corner to reveal our mind to practice serving. And there is this aspect mentioned recently too of the so-called yogi who's putting on a show for practice in some, he'll isolate himself for some amount of time, and will let his potentially attain some sort of superficial realizations, maybe mystic vows, something like that. He'll come back into society inevitably because he has to, because those material desires are still there, and he's not satisfied. So he comes back into society, begins to engage himself in philanthropic works, charities. Essentially, he falls down on the spiritual platform. It's simply just more goodness, trying to do good things for the community. But there's envy in the Lord goodness. There's contamination in the Lord goodness still. So he's not pure. And because he's not pure, he has some sort of ulterior motive to benefit his own self. And oftentimes this takes shape in the form of taking from others through the facilities he's gained, or rather, through the facility he has to control material nature. Because even one can do that to a certain extent through mystic potency. They can control the facilities of material nature to some extent. They become very influential. They can essentially make anyone do whatever they want. They can reach out to any place and take what they want. They can become small and the smallest. Not quite that small. That's Krishna. But they can become very small. They can become weightless. They can travel anywhere, essentially do anything they want. And they use these shows of mystic powers to entrance the general public who has no knowledge and are very easily misled. And like that, they take these people and then they leave and they go enjoy with all this that they've taken from these people. So this is the sad condition of the mystic who is ultimately not satisfied by all that which he can take from these people. He's still not satisfied. And eventually he loses these powers by the will of providence in some way or another. So understanding what is the success, right? There are three words in Sanskrit: Abhideya, Sambandha, and something. Essentially, we have to understand what is the supreme goal of our life. What is the relationship in which we have to the supreme goal? what are the means by which we attain this goal? See, 3 different aspects. Extreme goal, what's our relationship to it, and what are the means by which we attain it? So, there's Krishna, there's ourself, and then there's the act of devotional service. There's Krishna, understanding him to be the ultimate destination, going back home, back to Godhead, his abode. What's my relationship to Krishna? I'm going to turn and serve. Jivara Swarupava Krishnera Nityadas. Krishnera Nityadas, eternal servant of Krishna. That's the shocking bit of Vivekananda. What are the marginal modes? So we've forgotten and swayed by material energy. That's our position to Krishna. And what's the means by which we attain Krishna? Any one of the 9 process of devotional service. That's hearing, chanting, remembering, worshipping the lotus feet, praying, deity worship, becoming a friend, surrendering everything. These are some of the processes in which it's given to us, Srimad Bhagavatam. The ways of Prayojita, that's Prayojita, Sambandha, Avideya, Prayojita. These 3 aspects should be looked further into. Any questions? Answer any questions now, or we can continue to read. Arjuna said, what is the destination of the man of faith who does not persevere? Who in the beginning takes the process of self-realization, but who later desists due to worldly mindedness and thus does not attain perfection in mysticism. So, the perfection of mysticism is understanding who the perfect mystic is. It's Krishna. He's the supreme yogi, being named Yogeshwara. Real quickly, as we're nearing the class, I spent a lot of time on a few particular verses. So I think we can maybe just touch on these next few translations. We can kind of follow them. We can trace out the conversation as it's progressing through the verses that we recited tonight. Almighty Art Krishna, does not such a man being deviated from the path of transcendence perish like a living cloud with no position in the spirit? Arjuna very poetically is asking Krishna, what about the man? He unsuccessfully believed. What happens to himself? Does he lose it? Does he lose the path that he's made in transcendental science? Does he perish with no position in the sphere? It's very poetic, and this is actually a quality of the devotees. There are 26 qualities of devotees, of which poet is one of the later ones that's found on that list. Krishna says, this is Arjuna speaking. This is my doubt, O Krishna, and I ask you to dispel it completely. But for yourself, no one is to be found who would destroy this doubt. Translation. Thus the Lord said, Son of Pritha, transcendentalist engaged in auspicious activities does not meet with destruction either in this world or in the spiritual world. One who does good, my friend, is never overcome by evil. Is never overcome by evil. May not become a show state, but so all of us are done with some trying to. There's no loss or diminution on this path of yoga. And just a little bit of advancement on this path, particularly it's dangerous to have here. Other since the words, and other since the meaning of this Sanskrit verse, chapter 2, text 41, is that progress that we make in devotional services is eternal. We see this very clearly in some people who take the devotional service with a clear taste for it, built in to the program. It's like they're just picking up right where they left off. And this is done so through the mercy of the Lord, who has set up the system in place that can successfully only, after so many years of enjoying the higher planetary systems, he comes back down into a favorable situation for him to resume his Krishna consciousness. It's very nice that nothing is lost. One falls down from his path of devotional service, fallen transcendentalist, fallen yogi, it's okay. In one sense of the matter, it's okay because there's nothing lost. In another sense, we should really strive to, as quick as we can, rid ourselves of material contamination that's brought about through our contact with this world. We should not make reservations to stay here any longer than we need to. Like it was so nicely stated last night, I think it was. It's that no matter what yoga process we do, it ends, culminates in this devotion to the Lord. So it's either, we can take many lifetimes of the impure yoga process and eventually come to the point at which we surrender to the Supreme Lord, or we can just surrender to the Supreme Lord in this lifetime and save ourselves a lot of trouble, a lot of heartache. So we can make a prayer together that we be freed from everything that's keeping us attaining that surrender to Krishna as soon as possible, and that we're helped along by the mercy of the Vaishnavas, who we desperately plead that they forgive our offenses and that they take pity on our situation, they extend their hand, and we may grab it, and we may follow them in the glorious path that they're walking. We ask for help to surrender and to move forward step by step as soon as possible. So, Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.